Horse and Friends Radio with Conrad and Raphael.
Hey, I'm Conrad Nodden.
And I'm Raphael Valle. And from Nashville, Tennessee, you're listening to
The Horse and Friends Radio Show. Of the horse, for the horse, and by the horse lovers everywhere. Okay, Raphael, we're up to show number 16 already. What a fantastic lineup we've had. But we have a very interesting guest this time. The first veterinarian, and who's that?
It's Dr. Robert M. Miller. He's a world-renowned speaker and author on horse behavior and natural horsemanship. Actually, safe calling him the father of the modern-day natural horsemanship movement. And also known for his techniques on foal imprinting.
Mm-hmm. That'll be very interesting for our listeners. But right now, let's hear a little from our sponsors.
For over 12 years, the Dr. Cook Bitless Bridle has been making horses and riders happy around the world. This is a perfect alternative to using a bit. There are over 100,000 now in use in most all riding disciplines. With Dr. Cook's Bitless Bridle, communication is enhanced, trust is established, performance is improved, and harmony is achieved. Try the Bitless Bridle that started a revolution. For more information, call a toll-free number 866-235-0938 or visit them at www.bitlessbridle.com. That's www.bitlessbridle.com. Hi, this is Raphael for the Holistic Horse Products, a family-owned business. Recent scientific studies indicate that the traditional and chemical methods for deworming are harmful to horses as the worms and parasites build up an immunity to these chemical products. Let me share with you an effective 100% natural deworming product that I have been using on Ivory Pal and my other horses successfully for the last 3 years. It is Omni Worm Guard Plus with Immune Boost and Probiotics by the Holistic Horse, the gold standard of all natural dewormers. It provides a natural, non-chemical warmer with food-grade PermaGuard fossil shell flour. This keeps Ivory Pal worm-free on a consistent basis, but also contains Immune Boost to help him build a good immune system to assist in warding off disease. In addition to this, it contains 5 very powerful and very necessary probiotics to keep Ivory Pal's digestive system in balance. To keep your horse healthy, purchase Omni Worm Guard Plus with Immune Boost and probiotics. Please visit www.theholistichorse.com or call 1-877-774-0594.
When your best horse needs the very best video, when your farm needs to look absolutely fabulous, when your special event needs multi-camera, professional coverage, when you need a theme-based movie, and of course special effects, then you need Malibu Video Productions, now in Nashville. Okay, Raphael, on the line, we have our first veterinarian, and not just any veterinarian. This is a world-renowned expert in ethology, the study of animal behavior, and he has received numerous professional awards for his equine associations, his production of videos, as well as being the author of several equine books reflecting his lifelong experience studying the embedded traits of the horse. Welcome, Dr. Robert Miller, to the Horse and Friends Radio Show.
Thank you.
Our pleasure.
So, and also congratulations on recently winning the 2012 Western Horseman of the Year. That's an outstanding privilege. I know you'll be receiving the award officially at the Road to the Horse coming up here in Murfreesboro, right in our own backyard.
Yeah, that'll be in March.
Yes, sir. Now, you've spent 30 years as equine veterinarian, and obviously that led to your second career, which is mainly known for foal imprinting and obviously the behavior of the animal. Now, did you learn have those insights while you were practicing the veterinarian, and then learn that you could, educate a lot of people? How'd you come up, an understanding the importance of imprinting the foals and also just understanding the equine behavior patterns?
Well, actually, before I even started veterinary school, I'm in my mid-20s. I was starting colts in northern Colorado, and these were 4 and 5 years old, mostly, that had never been handled, had run wild all their lives, and I came up with a method on my own where I got started them so that they would never buck, and it's what we recognize today as natural horsemanship, and the contest in that was mentioned a few minutes ago, Road to the Horse, uses these methods. And one reason I got aboard this revolution in horsemanship is because I had been using these methods many, many years earlier and knew exactly how effective they were, and felt that I would do everything I could to support the movement and for the benefit of the horse. The imprinting was something else. In my third year of practice, I had a very busy obstetrical week. I had 3 dystocia cases. Those are difficult labors where the foals couldn't come out of the mare. And I had to deliver them, which is a lot of hard work and requires a lot of manipulation and handling of the foal. And because there were 3 of them, I think is the reason I became conscious of this. When I went back to see those foals many weeks later, they obviously remembered me and recognized me and were unafraid of me. 2 of them actually came toward me when they saw me. And I was familiar with the imprinting of birds, the research that had been done back in 1935 in Austria by Dr. Konrad Lorenz. And I assumed that the same thing was happening with these foals, that because I had worked with them for about 2 hours and handled them, that they knew me and recognized me. And I experimentally worked on a foal of my own, handled it extensively, which was against the popular technique in those days. I'd always heard and always been told that minimize the handling of foals, you cause all kinds of problems. And I found that by handling them, that is handling them properly, that they learn from the instant they're born, and they are what we call a precocial species. That is, their mind, neurologically, their brain is fully developed at birth. That's nature's way of protecting a prey species from predation in the wild. And the most powerful learning periods are the minutes, days, and hours after birth. And so after doing 3 of my own foals, I went public with it, called it imprint training, because it's training. All it is training of the horse during the imprinting period, which is right after birth. This was over half a century ago, and it's now in use all over the world, and which is very gratifying.
Oh, absolutely.
So you have that book where others can learn. I noticed you mentioned a few key points right after birth, and I think if I'm correct, you mentioned the key time to do it is like within 48 hours. And then you have a book for people to learn how to properly imprint. It's entitled Imprint Training of the Newborn Foal, if that's correct.
Your foal's handling during its first 24 hours of life can be the determining factor to ensure that it will have a happy and productive future as an adult. Dr. Robert Miller, equine veterinarian, author, and authority on animal behavior, found in his 3 decades of large animal practice that foals handled by humans at birth matured into easy-to-control, sensible adults. Over the years, Dr. Miller has created a program of techniques for handling the postpartum foal. These were documented in the best-selling book, Imprint Training of the Newborn Foal.
It was published by the Western Horseman Publishing Company in Colorado Springs. And that book has been translated into several foreign languages, and that book is the main reason it got so popular. It must be done properly.
What are the consequences of that? If someone doesn't really do it what you rightly call properly, can they do damage even though they have good intent?
Yes, they can, because the learning is so immediate and it's so long-lasting that they can learn the wrong thing just as rapidly as the right thing. It's not hard to do. It's easy to do, but it's important to follow the recipe. And after countless foals over a period of half a century, I've got it down to a very exact science. And so I recommend that people don't experiment with it, but some people insist on it.
It's like teaching a child bad habits, right? They're hard to break after.
Yeah.
You know, I've noticed too, it has fallen, at least when your methods came out, it's like many other things with natural horsemanship, has fallen into two camps, if you will. One where, and you briefly mentioned this, some people feel it limits the potential of the horse to do imprinting, and then the others see it as an understanding of equine behavior. The gentler approach works best. Why do you think there's such a polarized approach to something that works?
Because it's not traditional. Whenever you break with tradition, there's going to be opposition. And that's the principal reason. And you must understand that horse people in general are traditionalists. Those of us who devote our lives to horses we're really involved with what is a technologically obsolete creature. So we tend to be traditionalists, and I find that I have to resist that myself. I have to fight it in my own personality to be open-minded. I call it open-minded skepticism. I don't get on the bandwagon for anything new, but I'm willing to try it.
Right. No.
But the imprinting, there is still opposition. Nothing like there was 25 years ago, there was major opposition, not only by the public but also in academia by a lot of PhDs who were, trained behaviorists, because it wasn't conventional. However, that's diminished now tremendously because it's been so very successful. Imprint-trained horses have run in the Kentucky Derby. They've won in every conceivable discipline that horses are used in. The number one standard-bred trotting horse in the United States today is an imprint-trained horse. And so on. And moreover, in the last decade, the same principles have been using my horse book. A lot of people are training other precocial species in zoos and circuses, and that includes camels, elephants, rhinoceros, hippopotamus, llamas, and it's being used a lot in cattle too, range cattle.
Now, the difference between a foal that was imprinted, but using your methods, and one was not, I mean, I imagine that using the imprinting method results in the horse is probably a lot easier to train if done correctly because the relationship trust is established early on. Is that one of the major benefits? In addition to obviously having more trust from the horse, but easier training down the road?
I'm going to tie this foal to the fence. Now, I normally don't do that, and I don't recommend it. I'm going to do it just to prove that it can be done. And you'll see that whenever it pulls back against the rope, it immediately bounces forward. That's a conditioned response. I taught it that the second day. It took me 5 or 10 minutes to teach it that, because learning is so swift at this age. When it was first born, I desensitized the feet and legs to being handled. Used the flat of my hand to rasp the soles of the feet, and now you see I'm actually rasping them. And you notice how well it tolerates that. This mule was shod for the first time when it was a 4-year-old, and I'd started to ride it. My horse shoer said it was the easiest first shoeing he had ever done in his life. And it was a mule, not a horse. I think you'll agree that if you can do this with a mule, it will work even more easily in a horse. This foal had 1 hour of training immediately after birth, as soon as it was born, and the next day at 15 hours of age. When it was on its feet and well coordinated, it had another 40 minutes of training when it learned to lead, learned to tie. Now that's a little bit early for most horses, but this foal was so strong, so athletic, and so well coordinated that I could do that at 15 hours of age. Some horses aren't ready till 24 or even 48 hours, or occasionally a weak-legged foal. You may even want to wait till the third day for the second lesson. But the first lesson I always do immediately after birth, preferably before the foal has gotten to its feet. This particular foal was on its feet within minutes after it was born, and so what I did is I laid it back down again and went ahead with the training procedure.
Well, the imprinting is simply a visual attachment. If you just hang around with the foal, handle it, maybe towel it dry and so on, that is sufficient for the foal. Will imprint upon anything it sees moving right after birth. Anything. It doesn't even have to be a living thing. Of course, in the wild, that's almost always is the mare. But I've seen foals imprinted on machinery, tractors, manure carts, and so on, because they were moved right in front of the foal right after birth. So that's all imprinting is. The training occurs during that I use during that imprinting period is because the brain of a prey species like the horse must be fully developed. All of its senses are functional. They're not like puppies or kittens or human babies whose learning the potential is extremely low at birth. The horse is in maximum learning potential, and this is true of other prey species such as deer, goats, sheep, cattle, camels, llamas, and in the birds, ducks, geese, chickens, turkeys, pheasant. All of these creatures immediately after birth or immediately after hatching are able to follow mom, follow the group, they feed themselves. They're not helpless, and they learn with tremendous speed. And this is the way they have evolved to cope with an environment filled with hungry predators.
That kind of goes along with your statement that the horse is a highly intelligent species capable of exceptional communication with the human being. Why doesn't the human being get that?
Well, many people do, and as you, I'm sure you realize, there is a revolution in horsemanship going on now. Throughout history, there have been rare individuals who picked up on this, and they were called horse whisperers because people didn't understand it, so they thought it was mystical or magical. It isn't. It's purely scientific.
Today, persuasive methods of training horses are replacing coercive methods. These methods are more humane, they work more rapidly and more effectively, and they're sweeping the world. They're becoming more popular every day. That's why I call it a revolution in horsemanship. Most popularly, this new method of horsemanship has come to be called natural horsemanship, not because it's natural to us, but because it's natural to the horse.
The thing that's happened today is thanks to the fact that most horse owners, at least in our society, in the Western industrialized nations, are educated today. That wasn't true 100 years ago when many of the people working with horses were illiterate. Today, most of the people are informed, and also we're in an information explosion. So that information can be shared with amazing speed in this day and age. And that's the reason that this natural horsemanship movement has exploded all over the world. It started in the Northwest, Pacific Northwest of the United States with a handful of cowboys, a very unlikely source, but nobody would have ever dreamed it would happen, and it's now all over the world. And So ordinary people are learning how to better communicate with the horse. And as you said, it's a very intelligent species that will bond with humans and can be taught all kinds of things.
And thank you for spreading that message, because our whole show here, which will, I'm sure the listeners will love, but our whole thread of involvement with this is natural horsemanship and the various features. And we're so delighted to have you on here as a veterinarian explaining things of ethology, the study of animal behavior, which you have delved into for years, and you give great wisdom and insight. We thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
And I know you've been a big supporter of many of these newer natural horsemen, such as I'm quote here that was said back in the late 1980s. You said this about one natural horseman, where he said that you predicted by the time this individual reached age 40 would be one of the best horsemen and teachers in the world that the world had known. Can you explain a little about this individual? And he actually was in one of our previous shows. You remember those words?
I do. I think you're talking about Pat Pirelli.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wasn't quite 26 years old the first time I saw him work. I immediately saw his talent and supported him and encouraged him. And, of course, he's well past 40 now. He's one of the seniors in this movement. I believe you had Monty Roberts on your program.
In fact, on that note of Monty Roberts, I understand that you were kind of watching over the entire project as a veterinarian on the Shy Boy project. Is that true?
Yes, I was involved with the Shy Boy project. By then I knew Monty, but the way I got to know him is very interesting, and I don't know how long ago this was, but I would imagine it's 15, 17 years back. I don't remember exactly, but I knew who he was. I'd heard about him. And he telephoned me one day and said, do you know who I am? I'm Monty Roberts. I said, well, yes, I have. I've always wanted to meet you. He said, I've called to apologize. And I said, apologize? What for? Well, he says, I've been using your imprint training method. He says, and I've done 300 foals now. And he says, it has cut my training of racetrack horses, thoroughbreds, by 75%. And he says, and I've never thanked you, so I'm calling to apologize. And I said, well, don't apologize. I'm just delighted.
It's a compliment.
I was just delighted to hear that, and that led to a friendship which is ongoing.
Now, I wanted to ask you on that note, because we asked Monty to briefly describe it, and it's a wonderful thing. Were you there when Shy Boy actually returned from the herd back?
Yes, I was there for both filmings, the initial BBC program and then the follow-up, I forget how long later, a year or so later, I can't remember exactly the time, but it was a public television program. Yeah, I was there for both.
I've heard that this was staged, that the horse had been previously handled, that the horse was starved into submission, he was deprived of water, all absolute nonsense. First of all, it's not necessary if you understand the principles of behavior shaping. None of that is necessary. I've even heard, I had somebody say to me that they heard there was a vet on the location when the horse was originally captured and started, and that he tranquilized the horse. And I said, I'm a veterinarian. The horse was not tranquilized. There would be no point in it. It's not necessary.
How did it feel to see a wild Mustang leaving the wild Mustang herd and returning to the human? How did that make you feel?
Well, of course, by that time he was no longer wild. He'd been worked with for a long time, and was. What the amazing thing is, there was a fairly large group of people there, besides all the television people, and me, of course, and others. There must have been at least 2-3 dozen people standing at the base of the hill when Shy Boy decided to leave that herd that was up on the top of the mountain and come running down the hill. And amazingly, He went right to Monty.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Even Monty
Picked him
was
out.
surprised and shocked by it. He went right to
Yeah.
Monty. He picked him out of all of us and went right up to him, and that was caught on camera. And that's, of course, because he did the initial work with him.
Yeah, I said wild Mustang because, of course, the DNA that's bred so heavy into them. But your statement is well taken that, yeah, he had been worked with, but he still had a choice at that point, didn't he?
Mm-hmm. Of course he had a choice. He could have, in fact, when they turned him loose, he headed east at a dead run. And east is where he come from, in Nevada. And it was like he was heading home.
Yeah.
And then he circled on around and joined up with this range herd of horses and fraternized with them and hung out with them. But then he chose to come back. And in spite of all the people and the vehicles down below and the cameras and everything else, he just came down the hill, jumping the sagebrush, and went without any encouragement, went direct up to Monty.
Yeah.
As I say, all of us were pleasantly surprised, including Monty.
Absolutely. Can we talk just a minute about something that is quite distressing for horses and us observing it? We've had Alex Brown in the past who wrote a book on Barbaro. And then Secretariat's going to be before your show as well, the president of Secretariat.com speaking for Penny Chenery, the owner. But both of those famous horses died of laminitis. And you being a veterinarian, can you give us a little more insight on where it stands, any progress made, and so forth? What causes it?
Well, it's too complex to explain on a program like this. It's caused by errors in feeding is the most common cause, or excessive concussion, excessive work. They call that road founder. It's an ongoing problem, and about every 24 months, a new miracle cure comes up, and there's never been a single answer to it. All of these cures that have popped up over the years since I've been a veterinarian, which is over half a century, I work on some of the horses, but not on all. It's a problem. The domestic horse, it can usually be prevented if you're very careful about your management. I'm kind of paranoid about it, like putting the horse on spring grass. I give him 5 minutes the first day, and I double it each day. I'm so cautious about it because I've treated so many hundreds upon hundreds of horses with laminitis, some of which turned out disastrously.
Yeah.
But, you just mentioned the book Barbaro and the author.
Mm-hmm.
I heard during the Barbaro incident that horse was so uniquely gentle, so appreciative of what was done for him, so friendly with people that despite all the needles and all the things they did to him, he never lost his relationship with people. And I thought to myself, that sounds like an imprinted horse.
It could have been.
It'd be interesting to find out from the Jacksons, the owners.
Yeah.
I wrote to the chief surgeon and two of the assistant surgeons on the case and said, I'd like to know more about Barbaro. Can you tell me about his origins, and was he handled at birth? I never got an answer. And then I picked up that book one day, a few years later, and I opened to page 1, and there, the first paragraph, it explains that Barbaro had a difficult birth. It required extensive manipulation to get him delivered. The veterinarian spent lots of time with him, and that's exactly how I got onto this imprinting thing.
Very interesting.
So
yeah.
I figured it out correctly.
Excellent. Yeah.
And you're, in addition to having been a veterinarian, one of the fathers of the natural horse movement, you also have another artistic side, being a cartoonist, talking about adding
everybody's got a vice. Well, actually, one of my most recent books, the next to the last one I had published in 2010, it was called The Passion for Horses and Artistic Talent. And the subtitle is An Unrecognized Connection, because what I've discovered is that people who are totally devoted to horses, either as a vocation, as an avocation or both. The overwhelming majority of them, I would say 99%, are also artistic. Music is first, drawing and painting is second, sculpting, poetry, every art form you can think of. And it motivated me to do a book on the subject, the one I just described, and it helped me to understand myself because I was encouraged to go into commercial art as a kid. Friends and relatives told my parents he should be an artist. This is when I was a little boy. And what they didn't notice is I was drawing animals all the time. That escaped them because that was always my primary interest. And I never thought about veterinary medicine until I was a World War II veteran and I was in college, and it never occurred to me. I was an agriculture major, and one of my professors was a veterinarian, and it kind of clicked in my head one day, hey, that's what I ought to be doing. And it took me 6 more years to get into vet school, but I never veered from that once I figured out what I should do with my life. It was one of the greatest decisions I ever made because I've loved my career.
Well, it's such an interesting observation, and no doubt you have tracked it through. I'm kind of curious as to why. Why the connection? What makes that connection? Have you been able to nail that down?
The art and the horse.
Yes.
But look at history. Look at Leonardo da Vinci. Look at Russell, Remington, the great artists in history that spent much of their time or all of their time painting horses. And that, you know what the biggest art movement in the United States today is? The Western art movement. Mm-hmm. And these are people who just love horses. The way I got into this book was a completely different motive. I have found in my career a great number of people who walk away from a successful career in midlife that has nothing to do with horses and give it up in order to go into the horse business. A good example is my farrier. He was an astrophysicist to the age of 50. Gave it all up and became a full-time horseshoer. He's now 71, and he says he's a happy man.
Wow.
So this was the purpose of my book, to explore these people. But as I interviewed them, I found out they were all artists. In fact, I don't know the actual number of people that are in the book. I'd say 45 people that I interviewed. I really should count them. But there's only one that does not have artistic talent. So that's about
Very
the ratio
interesting.
I have found.
We were talking about Monty Roberts, and of course his wife is a wonderful sculptor. Does some beautiful
she's in
work.
My book.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
She's in my book.
Yeah. Now, Dr. Miller, you don't think that these kids that grow up loving horses were shown pictures within 48 hours after their birth, do you, of horse pictures?
We got to imprint the next generation.
We are not a precocial species. We are what's technically known as an altricial species, like the dogs and bears and the cat family and hawks and eagles and owls. That we are helpless at birth, and capable of learning very, very little, and we slowly, our mind and our brain and our senses develop very slowly and progressively, and that's not true of precocial species. They're born ready to go.
Now, maybe share something with us that can be a little controversial. To shoe or not to shoe? What are your thoughts on that?
Shoe when necessary. Mm-hmm. The shoeing movement, the anti-shoeing movement, is like so many things. It was an idea carried to a harmful extreme. This happens so many times in various technologies in society. There's something is wrong, and so a decision is made to correct it, and they overcorrect. Now, it's an exercise in logic. Is it true that many horses in the United States today aren't used enough where they really don't require shoes? The answer is yes. Is it true that there's a lot of poor quality shoeing done that's harmful to the horse's foot? The answer is yes. Is it true that many people leave shoes on far too long in order to save money and thereby harm the horse? The answer is yes. Then the illogical conclusion, therefore no horse should be shod. It is harmful. It has led to injury and death to many horses. I've had professors at 3 veterinary schools, 1 in Switzerland, 2 in the United States, tell me they've had to destroy horses because the people left them unshod because they didn't understand this anti-shoeing movement. And some horses must be shod, absolutely must be shod, either because they're used so much or because they have some problem with the foot construction. But I'll definitely admit that many horses are unnecessarily shod. Mm-hmm. Right now, I own 2 horses and 2 mules. They're all barefoot. Mm-hmm. I get to ride maybe 3 hours on a typical week. My wife rides an hour a day. We just don't need shoes. They're not used that much. Yeah. On the other hand, if we take them out on a trail ride, on a pack trip, or if we're invited to a cattle roundup, we're going to put shoes on them.
Yeah. Yeah, we have, and actually you met him when you were down here at the Road to the Horse last time. He stopped by our house with Joe Kemp, and the Tennessee Walker we have is barefoot too. And we did it, gradually, but it's effective. Now we could go over rocks, any type of terrain and so forth. But it takes, it's not just the art of just taking the shoes off. It's a lifestyle. You have to put the rocks down to make sure they're get used to or walking over the terrain you're going to be open. But yeah, it's not. You're right. It's not as easy as just taking off the shoe. It's a lot more involved. Diet, movement, lifestyle, and so forth. But if done correctly, it definitely it makes it a lot easier to have no shoes on the horse. And I'm sure probably other health benefits too.
Now, we're going to show a little video of this next point, but maybe you can explain a little bit of it to us verbally here. There's 2 places to be regarding safety and a horse. Very far away and very close. Can you comment on that?
Watch. I have one point of contact here. I have another point of contact here. And I have a third point of contact with my elbow right in the girth area. And then I can go ahead and work on that foot. I have a mechanical advantage that it's difficult for her to get her foot away from me. She feels me. She feels me in 3 different spots. It reassures her as to what are you doing down there. What I won't do is work like this, which I see some people doing. You're in a much more vulnerable place. The horse can jump forward and kick back with that right hind leg, and I get hurt. So you want to be at the shoulder. This is the safety position here at the shoulder. The only injury you can get, as long as you're in this relationship with a horse, is get your feet stepped on.
Yeah, you've seen my video, Safer Horsemanship. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is the poor seller of the 8 videos I've done, the least popular and by far the most important.
Indeed.
When I made that video, I said, I know this is going to save lives, but I will never hear about it. But I have heard about it. I've had 2 people tell me that their lives were saved by a couple of the tips in that video. Yeah, the 2 safest places around horses, very far away or very close.
Yeah.
It's people working at arm's length that get injured most often.
Absolutely. And I know we mentioned a lot and referenced a lot of great books and DVDs. And for our listeners, you could get all this information on Dr. Miller's website, which is www.robertmmiller.com. So that's where some of the books we're referencing, the DVDs, and a lot of good articles there too.
Packed with information.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, really helpful.
Thank you. But don't forget the M, Robert M. Miller, because there are many Robert Millers. It's a very common name. There's a lot of veterinarians with that name.
Okay. Well, Dr. Miller, you've been very insightful. We love your approach to imprinting and your approach to handling the horse, the natural horsemanship approach to riding, grooming, maintenance of the horse, and so forth. And thank you for sharing it with our listeners, because they're going to really benefit from the show, and they're going to benefit by going to your website.
Where are you located?
We're in Nashville, Tennessee.
Oh, yeah. No wonder you go to Road to the Horse.
Yeah, it's just next door. It's in Murfreesboro.
Oh, sure. Well, I'll be judging it again this 2012.
And congratulations again on your award.
Well, thank you very much.
And thanks for being on the show. We've really appreciated it.
And also, thank you for serving a World War II veteran, greatest generation. So that's a big thank you, too. There's not many of you left.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'll see you in Murfreesboro.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, wow, what a great show with Dr. Robert M. Miller, veterinarian, natural horseman, trainer, starter of a technique that has come all the way down today that has really improved relationship between horsemen and horse. Don't you agree?
Oh, cartoonist, too, and also a World War II veteran.
Yeah.
What's amazing is the ties to the previous guests. I think we mentioned that in previous shows. I know Joe Camp used the imprinting in one of his foals that unfortunately passed away, not from other things, but he used them, had great results in a short period of time.
That was in a storm, I think.
Malachi.
Malachi,
it's
really
a sad
sad
story. And then also, obviously, this Dr. Miller is the one that pushed Pat Pirelli. He was one of the first believer in him. And then also with Monty Roberts, you know, calling him about the imprinting, and also even referencing to Barbaro, where he recognized that the horse was so gentle and still trusting of humans despite all the medical treatment, and he saw the picture that because of Barbaro's difficult birth, he was imprinted not knowingly. So pretty interesting.
And I'm sure he knows Patrine Mitchum too, because of the Light Hands clinics and all.
Yes,
I didn't happen to mention that, but I'm sure he knows her. Well, there we have it, show number 16, and what a show it's been. And I guess we'll call that a wrap then.
Yes.
So, folks, thanks for tuning in, as they say, and be sure to be watching for our next episode coming soon.
Until then, happy trails, everybody.
Hey, Raphael, I bet you can't do this.
Horse and Friends Radio.